Okay, so this is the second part for the renal system for CEP 636. I don't have any special remarks for slides 34 and 35, so we'll jump to 36 to ADH, which regulates urine volume by decreasing it. Um, so in slide 37, um, when we're talking about the pituitary gland, that is a gland that is tightly associated with the central nervous system. It actually stores the hormones for that system. So any changes to that gland or the nervous system uh, are going to affect each other. Um, then you can see in the third bullet that ADH is regulated by stress, anesthesia, and exercise, which is us. On slide 38, in regards to the first point, the idea behind the first point is that it creates a gradient, a mechanical gradient that will affect function. Gradients are basic tools used in chemistry to promote movement and balance. As usual, I made a mistake of writing lactate acid. Probably was tired when I prepared the video, so it's of course lactic acid. There's a difference between the two. Um, we know that lactic acid can be used by skeletal muscles and in the Cori cycle to recreate glucose. So that's very important. Um, then in slide 41 on the second bullet, just to clarify, we're talking about kidney originated gluconeogenesis, meaning that the creation of new glucose by transforming 2 units of lactic acid into 1 unit of glucose. In this case, we're talking about when it's done in the kidneys. Um, Water intoxication, basically, it's rare. It's very rare. We are built or we operate in a way where we lose water way more than we actually conserve or accumulate. Um, the vast majority, by far, of processes in the body will cause you to lose water. Um, of course, if you have an increased amount of water or volume of water in the body, that may lower the concentration of ions. And as I hope you already know by now, that would immediately affect the central nervous system, CNS, and it would affect electrical conductance. Um, let's see. Nothing major to talk about in slide 44. So I'll just jump into slide 46, sorry. We're talking about exercise induced proteinuria, meaning proteins in urine. Proteins are important. They influence gradients, A, electrically, and B, mechanically, by bringing with them volumes of water and other solubles. So they have an important role to play with vessel oncotic pressure, which is a driving force of the system. Then notice in slide 47 in the second bullet, we're talking about exercise induced proteinuria as being reversible within 48 hours post exercise. That is, of course, in healthy people. Um, then, a very important point that I want to emphasize, I hope you remember it, is the third bullet that says protein concentrations in urine are proportional to exercise intensity and duration. Interesting point. Then on slide 48, NO is nitric oxide, and of course you should know that with the idea of nitrates and their application in ACLS. Um, Then we can go on to slide 50. The second point bullet on this slide talks about renin and angiotensin 2, which is, and the interesting part is that the release of renin is proportional to intensity, ever more so in high intensity 80% and above of maximal aerobic capacity. Then we see that we have renin acting, converting ANG1 into ANG2. Then in slide 51, GF, of course, is growth factor. We can talk about a looped feedback, which is very important to normal function in this case. So one feedback creates a response, and now the response acts as a feedback to the next response. Then we can talk about prostaglandins. A bit information about them. In general, they're not produced in a specific site or tissue, so they are actually secreted or produced. They're not secreted. They're produced in all tissues of the body. Basically, they are special hormone-like substances that are derived from fatty acids. They may have the opposite effect in different tissues. So in one, they can cause an inhibition of a process. In another, they may cause the acceleration or the occurrence of a process. It really depends on what kind of type of receptor that tissue or cell has. So different receptors can induce even the opposite reactions to the same protein. Remember that. They are powerful vasodilators. They have a role in inflammation process. What they do is they limit water movement. Excuse me. Sorry. I know you all said bless you, so thank you. They limit the movement of blood, which helps the inflammatory system or process. Then we can talk about the first two bullets on slide 54. Basically, what's explained here or presented is a pathology. So ARF obviously is when your disease, it is highly unlikely to happen if you are healthy. What else? We have slide 55. Just wanted to mention that, for instance, the first bullet on slide 55 could be a great basis for a question in the exam. Then moving on to norepinephrine, I didn't see anything I wanted to clarify on slide 57. Regarding NO, on slide 59, nitric oxide, it is used to enlarge or increase the vessel diameter, which allows greater flow in that vessel. And then in regards to slide 60, the first bullet, notice that one of the understandings that you can have from that bullet is that it has not been proven in humans. So we are assuming so, but it hasn't been proven in regards to the effects of NO. Exercise-induced renal failure. Slide 62, we're talking about increased sodium causes increase in renal VO2. It makes sense. It costs money or energy to increase sodium reabsorption and intake. So you have to pay, you have to create energy, so VO2, renal VO2 goes up. Then we can see that part of the problem may be that while the demand goes up for energy, the ability to deliver, because you were talking about renal failure, goes down. So you have a delivery problem. How are you going to utilize something that it was not delivered in order to produce energy? Then the third point, the third bullet on slide 62 is talking about an unknown threshold, but we know the threshold exists. We just don't know when it occurs. Interesting within itself. And then slide 63 in general explains how wrestlers, being athletes that often perform while they are dehydrated, are a population at greater risk for ARF. In regards to slide 64, on the right hand wing of what's going on there, obviously we're talking about an attempt to restore blood volume. What else? Slide 65, the last point, is talking about better fine-tuning of the reaction of the system because improvements to neural function. Slide 67 is one of the basic principles that we've talked about. If you have no challenge, there'll be no change or no need for change. If there's no need for change, there'll be no adaptation. And then we see that the change or the stimulus that we actually need in order to see adaptation is a change in workload. So when workload is 0, change is 0. And at rest, by definition, intensity is 0 and workload should be 0. So we don't expect any adaptations to responses at rest. In regards to slide 68, just to clarify that AT1 and AT2 are angiotensin 2 receptor type 1 and receptor type 2. Obviously, with hormones, if you have a problem with the receptors on either side of the membrane, you're going to have a problem with their function. Notice that the rate of change is higher in non-trained, meaning that they peak earlier. Just a second, please. Okay. So it's exactly like an exercise test. The less trained you are, the less time you're able to tolerate exercise and stay on the treadmill. The second bullet on slide 68 talks about becoming more efficient and having better and more accurate regulation of the process. On slide 68, bullet 4, we're talking about less shifts in the volume of water and volume of blood. So the more stable the process is, the less shifts you have, the less situations the system has to go through at different situations. Then slide 70, I didn't have any remarks, so if you have questions, let me know. Slide 71, just to make sure that you know that EHTN is short for essential hypertension. Slide 72, I didn't see anything that I thought I need to explain. Once again, reach out and let me know if you have questions about any slide. And then on slide 74, on the third point or bullet, the idea behind it is a greater need for compensation. So that's about it. I wish you well with the exam, and if you have any questions at all, please reach out and we'll take care of it. Have a good one.